You're listening to the dangerous mind of Mark Yoshimoto Nemkov. No excuses, no BS, no pants.
Wowzers, that's my review of the CP5 so far. But let's talk about it because this is a really cool preamp kit. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Microphone Playboy podcast. How you doing today? So over the weekend, I had the pleasure, and I am not exaggerating when I use the word pleasure, because I enjoyed it immensely. I had the pleasure of building a CP5 DIY 500 series preamp kit from DIYRecordingEquipment.com. And of course, you're listening to it right now paired up with the Neumann BCM-104. Now, the Neumann BCM-104 broadcast condenser microphone was designed to be used with a clean preamp for broadcast or for radio. And in broadcast and in radio, they're not using Neves or APIs. They are using really pretty much transformerless, very clean input-output. That's what they're using. It's all transformerless. It's pretty much supposed to be gain on a wire. And I'll tell you this much. They are not thinking about the quality, the overall sonic quality of a preamp as much as you or I. But I want to take a moment here and ask you to listen to how clean this signal sounds. This is such a clean, beautiful signal coming out of the BCM-104. Now, the mic itself, the BCM-104, really has a little bit of character of its own. It has a little bit of that Neumann richness in it, baked in. And you can really hear it in the mid-range. There's nice harmonic content in the mid-range, but overall it's a very clean output microphone. And the low end on the BCM-104 is contoured to help the mids pop a little bit more. Because again, this is a microphone that was purpose-built for you speaking into it really close up. And you're hearing it with no EQ on it and no de-esser on it. And the CP5 just sounds really great. I mean, it is doing the thing that you need it to do for voiceover, which is present the sound of your mic and the sound of your voice in a way that feels natural, that feels like it's not overhyped. It's not, this doesn't feel like advertising. This feels a little bit more like just us talking. And that's what I like about it. And this combo, this preamp is so quiet. It is so super quiet. Hold on. I am going to take the tiny little bit of dynamics I have on this. I'm going to take it off. All right. There's just really a 1.5 to 1 compressor on it because that's what I use just for voiceover work, just in case I overmodulate, and that can help, take the edge off of a really hot signal coming in. But here, let me just take this up. And this is without the gate too. And it's super quiet. I mean, super, super quiet. I don't even really need the gate on it. But, I'm a creature of habit. So let's put it back on here. So anyway, listen to it. This thing just sounds so good. And you know what? Even though this is really categorized as clean gain, there is something going on the high end that feels, I don't want to say softened, I don't want to say rolled off, but there's something about the high end that lacks the crispiness that you often get with a clean preamp. Like those Grace preamps, the ones that, they're not as popular as they used to be. For a long period of time, Grace preamps were like, everybody was like, oh, you need to get a Grace preamp for voiceover. But the criticism on the Grace is that it's so clean, it's gain on a wire, that the high end can feel often a little bit shrill, a little bit bright, a little bit too much. And sometimes that's a function of your microphone too, of the high end on your microphone. And on the 104, I'm not as sibilant, but the high end on this thing, I don't need a de-esser at all on this mic with this preamp. It's really very cool because eliminating that little bit of high-end harshness, and you don't feel like you're losing detail, but eliminating that is humongous. So even though I've only had the CP5 up and running in the booth for less than 48 hours, overall, my first impressions are very positive. What do you think? So now that we know that it's worth the effort of building it, and this kit currently costs $200. That's it. That's pretty cheap for a preamp that sounds this good. But you have to build it yourself. That's the thing. You have to build it yourself. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about building the CP5. So DIYRE, DIYRecordingequipment.com. DIYRE founder and owner Peterson Goodwin. He was kind enough to send me this kit because I told him I was going to build it on camera, which I did. And when he sent it, I'm like, oh man, what did I sign up for? Because I've never done that. I've never done a full total preamp build on camera. So even though this is really the fourth 500 series preamp that I built, I have to say that overall, I went into it not knowing what to expect. And then when I looked online at the build information, the documentation that they provide for you, I was like, wow, this is really well documented. They have a great build guide, right? A lot of pictures in it, step by step. And then they also have an interactive build map where you pull up a page, right? There's a link to a page. And on the left side of the screen are your components listed, right? R1, 33K resistor, et cetera, et cetera. They're listed right there. And then you click on that. You click on, whatever R1, R2, or whatever capacitor you're looking at. You click on that. And on the right-hand side, there's a graphic of the board. And it shows you where that component is. That component, like basically, instead of there being a blank spot there, like on your board that you're looking in front of you, the component is installed on the board. So it shows you exactly where it's supposed to be, the orientation of the component. And that's tremendous because a lot of times, you look at a board, and it's not like everything is in order left to right, top to bottom, like you're reading a book. R1 could be here and R3 could be like on the other side of the board. And this prevents you from spending too much time searching the board and potentially putting the wrong component in the wrong spot. Well, it may not prevent it, but it's going to help mitigate that possibility. So what I'm trying to say is that Peterson has taken a lot of the friction points out of a DIY build. Because what they first give you is a kit with everything in it. Every part, every piece of hardware, every component, every resistor, every capacitor, every diode, everything you need to build this thing comes in the box, and there's a bag in the box with everything in it. And all the parts are sectioned out in 7 different bags. And so you basically, right, you start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you make progress through the board using the build guide, using the interactive build guide. And it's pretty simple. And also on the board, and I really like this, and I really wish more DIY providers would do this. It's really simple. It's not that hard. Is putting the actual component value on the spot on the board where that component is supposed to be installed. Not everyone does that. Sometimes it just says, again, like R1. But here it was like R1 and then the value of it. Every component had the value of it right there. Again, to help you make sure that you're putting the right part in place the first time. So it's really well thought out, really well laid out. 500 series board is much larger than that of a microphone PCB, so you have a lot more room to work with. It's a lot less cramped. So I shot this build video in real time. I did it from beginning to end. I built this preamp in about 90 minutes. Let's just say 2 hours because I took a few breaks to, use the bathroom, get a cup of coffee, that kind of thing. So in under 2 hours, and also, having to deal with a camera hanging right in front of my face but it was relatively simple. And it was relatively, pain-free overall because, a lot of times I've built stuff and then I've turned around and plugged it in and it didn't work. And I realized, oh, you know what? I screwed up somewhere. I put the wrong part in here or there, and that's a pain. That's a pain when you have to remove a resistor because you put the wrong resistor in the wrong spot. That's a pain. I mean, it's not difficult, but it's just something, it's an aggravation. And this was an aggravation-free build, at least, from my perspective. And building it on camera, running camera overhead as I built this thing. So that video, actually, I wanted to provide that video as a real-time build guide in order to help people, better understand how it's done. You can watch it. If you're thinking about the kit and you're like, I'm not sure if I can do this, you can watch me build it. Again, it's pretty simple. And, it took under 2 hours. So, it wasn't something when I built the hairball Lola, there are a lot of parts in that. And, there's basically like a board that sits on the board that has the knobs on it and the LEDs. There's a whole lot going on. But the CP5 is a lot easier to deal with. When I built the Lola, I think I did it over like 4 days because I was like, you know what? I'm going to really take my time. I want to get it right the first time. I don't want to plug this thing in the first time and it not work. I want success. So I took my time. I did it like an hour a day for like 4 days for like a week. And it came out great. But this, so much easier. And you know what? It yields a professional quality sound. And in the end, that's what matters. The building of the kit was fun. It was cool. But if you don't end up with something that you're going to use, then, you're just building the kit to build the kit, and you could just build anything, just solder stuff together if all you want to do is just, have a diversion. Because the one thing I really like about DIY and about building is when I'm doing that, my focus is 100% on what's going on in front of me. I'm not thinking about work. I'm not thinking about bills. I'm not thinking about politics. I'm not thinking about anything other than the task at hand. That's what I really love about DIY. And then, if you do it right, you end up with something really cool. And this is really cool. I really dig the CP5, especially with the BCM-104, because I feel like I'm really getting out of the 104 what it was intended to do. I'm not using a preamp that has, its own character to it. I'm using the character of the mic, and I like that. Now, of course, you can buy and assemble or buy pre-assembled the Color, COLOUR modules that are like plugins. They're like hardware plugins that go into the preamp. And you can use those to add different levels of saturation or compression. There's a whole lot of different color modules that you can use. You're hearing the CP5 with no color module on it. And so I'm looking at the offerings there, and I'm trying to figure out if there's one that I really want to get for this. Because I love this sound. I love how it sounds clean. It doesn't sound boring. It actually does. It feels very supportive of the BCM-104 sound. I feel like this is a really great pairing. But again, I want to know what you think. So the build overall, I would say very well documented, very well laid out. It's an intermediate level build. So again, if like any DIY, of course, if you have a few builds under your belt, you greatly increase your chance of success, and we always want success. Always want success. So the whole thing, I would say, was a very positive experience, stress-free experience overall. And again, huge thanks to Peterson Goodwin at DIYRE for providing this, because I again am looking at gear that I had otherwise kind of just not really taken seriously. Honestly, I thought that the CP5 was going to sound like meh. I was like, oh, it's going to sound like maybe like an interface preamp. But it has like a really nice depth to it. I really like it. So what do you think? I mean, the kit is awesome. The build is awesome. It's great. And take your time. You can get it done. And of course, they have a repair service. Should you plug it in and not get signal and you don't know what to do, they'll help you fix it. I think they have a repair service. I think they do have a repair service. And the sound? Well, I mean, you're listening to it. So let me know what you think. I'm very, very pleased. I would give a very positive review of the CP5 overall. The build, the sound, it's great. Have you built a CP5? Are you thinking of building one? Because it's pretty cool. All right. Until next time, this is Mark Yoshimoto Nemkov, fading to black.
The Preamp pumps with life you breathe within. Transistors sing a tone so warm and pure. From Solar's kiss, your journey will begin. And every note you'll find will now endure. DIY, with a little bit of patience and effort and try, you can feel the magic of DIY. In shadows where the schematics lay so bare, a world of parts awaits the careful hand. Resistors, wires, all with purpose there. So build the sound that only you command. With a little bit of patience and effort and try, you can feel the magic of DIY. In every groove and switch you've placed with care, the signal flows a current of your soul. 500 rack of modules standing there, a testament to all that makes you whole. DIY. With a little bit of patience and effort and try, you can feel the magic of DIY. The lights you built, the preamps all aligned. Each piece a step, your passion now made clear. In every sound, your spirit intertwined. The DIY has brought your dreams so near. DIY. With a little bit of patience and effort